Everybody, how you doing? Let me switch over to cameras. Bada bing, bada boom. This is Hunter George. My name is Ian Martinez.
What's good,
Great to
peoples?
how you doing? How you doing? Great to have
Thanks for
you.
joining.
Yes, we got a few people in the room now. Hunter George is a good friend. Why don't you go introduce yourself, George or Hunter, and
Cool.
let you know what you're all about.
Yeah, so my name is Hunter George. I am a music producer and music supervisor. I've worked in the entertainment business for about 11 years, mostly focused in the film music space. My background also is previously with beat battles and hip hop producing when I was younger. I used to tour around. With like a bunch of underground hip hop acts like Hieroglyphics and Del the Funky Homo Sapien and Styles of Beyond and a couple others, Murs and Grouch and Eli. And then I kind of got into film music. I worked under a film composer named Christopher Leonards, who works on currently The Boys on Amazon and Lost in Space on Netflix. And then I worked under a couple of music supervisors, John Houlihan, who did the Deadpool movies, John Wicks, Atomic Blonde, and Jonathan McHugh, who did the classics like Empire Records, Spawn, Blade, etc. So I have this background in kind of both realms of like making music for film and TV, and then also like licensing, publishing, and music supervision. So I'm very
Nice.
excited and happy to be with the Arturia folks today.
Great to have you, man. Again, my name's Ian. I do the marketing for most of the U.S. here, and yeah, just good to have you all. Today is an Analog Lab 5 presentation or demonstration, as you already know, I'm sure. Part of the V Collection 8 collection. Now, the two different ways to get and use Analog Lab 5 is within V Collection 8 or the Analog Lab 5 program by itself. You can purchase it for $200, or you get the whole collection for $600. There's about an 8,000 sound difference, where in Analog Lab 5 you get over 2,000 sounds. And V Collection 8, you get just over 10,000. and it's the power browser to the whole collection. A lot of people, they get the whole collection, they're like, man, I got 28 different installs or different instruments to pull up. You really
Yeah.
only need Analog Lab 5 in my opinion. I mean, yeah, you can go
Yeah.
strictly to the DX7 or whatever that you already know and that you want to select, but the browser has everything all in one. The processor is very very good on your system. I'm able to run tons and tons of instances, and you still have access to all the different synths within that browser, believe it or not.
It also works well with like third-party plugins like Waves or all those other mixing plugins that you might use in terms of bandwidth and things. I don't usually have any issues as far as processing power
Yeah,
and things like
okay.
that. So.
Or the Arturia effects collection as well.
Yes, of
We
course.
got that cracking as well, and some new things on the way. But
I'm actually a really big fan of the Infinity Verb and Reverb that you guys have, and then the like pre 1973 compressors and stuff like that. They're really awesome.
Right. Yeah, they're amazing. Okay, well, why don't we dive in to this
Cool.
demo? This is a track that I think you've been working on, right?
Yeah, I mean, even the last track that you guys maybe came in with, many of the sounds, I'm just looking to make sure my settings are good on the share. Many of the sounds that were a part of that song were actually Arturia sounds. So, um, again, I think it's a really robust thing. And a lot of times I'm just honestly just going to, can you guys see the screen on the right here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to into Arturia and the Analog Lab mostly because you can access like pigments and the other kind of like you said, the other bundles through there. So I do kind of oftentimes just go right to it. I'm big in synths as well. I really like using synthesizers, and I'm also really a big fan of pianos, which you guys have a really great collection of like piano samples and
Very
stuff as
much.
well.
Yes.
So what I really appreciate about this format, and we'll get into it too, but when you open these up, you'll see that like you're literally looking at the vintage synthesizers as they were, and the samples I think are also accordingly similar quality in the sense of like they're actually from that era. So you can really achieve both authentic sounds from that era without needing like a ton of, again, if you had like one of these, the Prophet or whatever it is, it would take up like a whole space in your room. So the ability to be able to have these just in your database and still kind of achieve similar output. I know obviously like it's not going to be as exactly the same, but I mean I think it really achieves a lot of great stuff. And you can do hybrid sounds and work very quickly in achieving that. And so you don't have to like do a lot of patching or setting things up or anything of that nature. So you have a ton of control in what you're trying to accomplish. And one of the things that I wanted to show you guys was, maybe I'll show you like a little bit of this track, but I had started this track before I got into the new version of Analog Lab. So I had 4, and then now I'm working out of 5. And so what I do want to show you is if some of you guys had 4 and you guys want to bump into 5, you'd be able to have pretty easy time kind of making that transition. So I'll do that on one track, and we'll get into the kind of the new updates on what 5 is doing. But let me just play a little bit of this track. I'm sure you guys are going to hear a lot more of it as this develops, but let's just play it. And Ian, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear the sound as it's coming out.
Sure.
Good. Okay.
There we go.
That's like the first 16 bars. I also wanted to make sure my email button's off just in case. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward, and it'll advance as it goes in. There's a bunch of different kind of sequences, and we'll kind of segment this. But basically, the core of it is obviously kind of an arpeggiating synth, a horn, this kind of like warpy chord synth. These chords here, very stabby synth here, and then this piano, which is kind of cool. It's very dreamy, like piano, and then this computer ARP kind of sound. It's very mechanical, kind of like it just keeps that like almost like a hi-hat beat, you know. So we'll go into the first thing I want to do is take a look at this piano because as you'll see when you open it up, it shows you the version 4 here. But what I want to do is just like, look, here's the piano. It's just a simple, you know, this just kind of upright piano here. And then I just added some like slight reverb to it. But what I want to do is like just take note of, you know, like your favorite sounds or sounds that you had maybe in your previous recordings or beats that, you know, you have to make the updates on. Just go, oh, attack piano fading. So what I want to do is now go into Logic, open up Analog Lab 5 right here, which for me, it's a recent plugin. So otherwise, I'll show you quickly how to access it if you don't already know. But you would just go down to this AU instruments function here and all of these different, you know, basically third parties. And then you can see if you wanted to, you could do just individualized instrumentation. But like Ian said earlier, all of these are literally going to be in 5. And you can access it through stereo here, and then it'll pop up. So it's going to look like this when you open it. So again, it's a little bit of a divergence from what you saw with 4. And they break it down, you know, top to bottom by, firstly, like if you just know what instrument you want to work out of or what synth, you can just click on what you want to do. And then you can kind of just basically, you know, go back into the Explore tab here and find what you want. And one of the cool things is when you click on instruments, Ian was just showing me, which is really awesome, is if I hit the command button or for PC, you could hit the control button. You can click on a couple of these at a time. So as you can see, they're activated, and then it'll show you the results of, you know, X thing. So it shows you here, if you guys can see, I've now selected these presets, and then you can also hit randomize, and all of them will kind of pop up in different ways, or you can organize them by type. So all of the, you know, let's say poly leads or whatever are here, ambient, SFX, atmosphere, baseline. And then also, you know, now that, you know, we can also take a look at this, which is another Arturia product, which is the Keylab 49 and Mark II. You know, you can scroll through these presets here or individualize them. And then so these are, you know, if I select right on there, it's individually kind of going in and selecting different ones, or you can scroll and then hit this jog wheel down and it'll activate, you know, whatever you are looking to do. And I really dig this just because, you know, with this keyboard, like I used to use like another third-party keyboard previously that was from like a bit of an older generation. And back in the older generation, like let's say anywhere from 2009 to 2015, a lot of these onboard controls, like the faders, the knobs, the drum pads, the modulation, they really didn't work the way you wanted to unless you really knew how to get into your DAW programming. And so with this, the way they've set this Keylab up, almost every one of their products, even like any version of this or some of their other synthesizers, it really just kind of plug and plays with the Arturia software, and even still a lot of other third-party softwares that you can use that are not Arturia if you still want to, you know, have your favorite ones from different things. But, you know, when you basically touch a fader, just an example, you kind of, if you can see that reverb knob on the actual software, it's moving as I'm moving the fader. It's also a lot of times programmable. So if I wanted to change some of these programs, I can go in and change a lot of these parameters depending on what's offered. So that's basically like a really introductory version. But what we wanted to do before, so I'm actually gonna go back real quick because we
And
wanted to
just so
go
you
look
guys
at.
know, to set up the keyboard with your DAW, there's a tips and tricks. If you type in Essentials or Mark II in the Arturia website, and then you type in Keylab, you know, tips and tricks, you'll see the whole dedicated schematics as far as how to set up your Keylab with your DAW specifically.
Yeah, and that's very helpful. That's very helpful because there's the MIDI control center and some of that stuff that will allow you to program like your lighting coloration and things like that for your
Right,
drum pads
right,
and a
right.
bunch of other cool effects. What I also like about this Keylab 2 is when you open up this box, it does come with a number of these. Can you see this?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
are
yeah.
onboard kind of like controllers per DAW. So it has one for Logic, Pro Tools, and Ableton, I believe. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong. Those are the three, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, and just to add as well is that the keyboard is a mirror image of what's on Analog Lab. So they've made it so that you don't have to
Yes.
wonder, and usually if you're using a synth or using an onboard board with a synth that it's not made with the keyboard, you're gonna have to try and find which knob is moving which knob. Which for me was like, man, I don't even want to do that
Right.
personally, in
In
my own
Logic
opinion.
or in
Yeah,
Ableton or in,
this is
yeah.
just an exact image, and they're choosing some of the most popular parameters and modulation abilities in the board, and those 9 knobs, and those nine faders in Analog
Right.
Lab, and you already know where they're at in the board, so you kind of get used to where everything's at, and it becomes like almost muscle memory because you're used to using the same GUI, the same interface as what's on the board,
Yeah.
what's on the screen.
I'm also a guy, like I said, I work in both sides of the fence. Like I work in the sync and licensing side, which takes up a lot of my bandwidth, honestly. But
Mm-hmm.
what I do like is when I get bursts to be able to create and produce. I really hate being like, I'm going to turn on my devices, get my session going, and then some bug happens on either a software plugin or the keyboard or the DAW, where now I'm spending the bulk of my creative bandwidth to address a problem. So what I like about these kinds of things is when I hit a knob or a fader, it just does what I imagine it's supposed to do. And then therefore I'm
Right.
not like running in and bumping into like being kind of creatively frustrated, which, as I'm sure you all know, is a frequent issue with creating music. So, but what I want to do is go back real quick. So
Yeah.
TAC piano fading, let's just grab that real quick and remember it. TAC piano fading, Analog Lab 5, open it up, and let's just see if it's there. Give it a sec to load. There it goes. And then you can just search TACK piano. And let's hit it. Search. And it should pop up. Or let me just pull up piano.
There it
And
is.
yeah, so TAC piano, there's a couple of them. So TAC piano fading is the one I had previously. So now I can just have that. And again, like let's say I had a beat like 6 months ago and I want to investigate like other cool sounds or other pianos, like it's clear that I could just go in and do that. Now I've hit piano and it's given me all these different types to mess with. And again, like let's just hear this real quick. So just for intent and purpose. So I chose this kind of dreamier piano, right? I'm gonna get rid of these sounds too. So that's what it sounds like normally. And then on board, on the right, there's reverb that I can select here. So I go into the thing and activate this reverb here. Let me see what's going on here. So you can boost that up here, right? And then I can also like, let's say I want to do a honky tonk piano. Right, so you could do any number of these things, or like I really like, for instance, the Japanese grands and things like that. So let's do like Japanese large studio, right? So it's a really cool kind of like grand piano sound, and then you can add effects. But what I really like about the piano specifically is when you go into this section here, this right, you can see the instruments on all of them, and we'll get into some synthesizers and stuff like that. You can go in to here, add, again, processing effects here. This is a delay, this is a reverb. You can, manually boost these up, or you can hit them on the faders. And then you can also add like different flanger type effects, compressor, distortion, phaser, and activate them. And we'll get into this a little bit. Before I do that, I want to kind of show you some other stuff. This button here is really great because you can open up the piano preset and take a look at the what's under the hood of this thing. And then there's also different microphone placements that you can kind of move around or boost or affect the EQs here. So right now as it stands, I'm going to get rid of this reverb and the delay real quick. It just kind of sounds like that, right? which is cool. And then you can also affect like what the mic distance is here, brightness, EQ, so you can hear the, you know, gain here, high, the high side, the low side is down here. So you can really kind of really customize. In addition to, you know, I am a person who I will get as much as I can out of the Arturia presets, but then you can also have the choice to go over to your own plugins, even also add on Arturia plugins, or just like, you know, a lot of times I'll just quickly use like an onboard EQ, and I'll just kind of start like notching stuff and boosting areas that I want to highlight. This mix particularly was for that tack piano, so we can go back to that. And then, you know, I use kind of a busing system for a lot of my reverbs. So let's just type again that tack piano here and get back to it. Tack piano fading is what I want to use. And this one's cool too. Again, like here's the literally like one of those kind of upright honky tonk pianos. And you can affect, again, like the mic placement here. You can also do different things, again, with those phasers, the delays. All of the pianos will have that. They also have modulation as well, and things like that. And I'm going to make sure this is on record. So all of my, and that's another thing, is always hit the record ready in order to activate the plugin. So now, as you can see, all these are working. So you can now hear it's kind of very like dreary and I think, you know, in a normal circumstance, you might not want that much but for like dramatic effect, you know, you could take all this off and it sounds like this. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what would normally sound like this is now it's got this kind of like drowned out like piano bounce, and then with everything going, it sounds like this. You know? So that's just, I wanted to just show you ideally, like, look, I know you guys all have beats that you guys made out of 4 or maybe even Pigments or whatever. Bringing them into this new system is really not that difficult, as long as you just like quickly kind of remember what you had. Or I always like these situations too, because a lot of times I'm like, I didn't really love the beat before, and maybe I want to try a new sound out. And obviously there's a ton of new stuff with the 8 bundle as well. So for like the V collection or whatnot. So that's that. I'm going to go into a new sound now. I believe this synth is also Analog Lab. So what I really like about Arturia is the variety of synth that they have. So I already have this, you know, down to this like Prophet here. And then again, like what I really like about this is it has like literally the device in front of me. So I could, you know, I remember using this in person. I can, you know, affect all these knobs just by touching it with the mouse. Or you can look at the bottom section here and find, you know, where some of these important, like, you know, every plugin that deals with synthesizers has the attack, decay, sustain, release built in. So you can, and if you don't know what that is, basically is like attack is how quickly a note in MIDI is recognized. So if it's got a fast attack, it's gonna like instantly hit when I hit it. So let's like just solo this, as opposed to when I affect the attack, like it kind of draws in. Decay is how long the sound will be impacted. So it just makes, you know, it doesn't really come in at all. And then when you have it, so yeah. And then sustain is basically like utilizing what you would use as a sustain pedal or a piano pedal. So if I hit the note now, it just kind of resonates out, right? And then release as well is kind of a similar vibe to that. So the longer release goes, you know, the longer like the tail of the audio kind of draws out. And again, it's all using MIDI. So like You know, you could get into the weeds on MIDI too. I don't won't do that, but you know, it basically anytime you're recording out of Arturia, it records into this styling. And then again, you could like manipulate, like let's say I want to take my MIDI and just like take all these bottom notes here and move them into like a different register. I could just take this and then move it down a whole octave if I want, right? So that would be like, so now it reads like this. I'm just giving you guys just a little bit of background as well. So it's like, so now you can hear that low end on the lower octave. So the actual sound ends up going from sounding like this in Analog Lab, which is just going to get rid of these here like this. So it's got a very tinny edge to it. So when I wanted to get into it, I also wanted to add like a little bit more of a cavernous ideal to it. But again, you can hit this reverb too and use these. And then again, like I said, let's go back real quick. And you can get more into the weeds on like really crafting this onboard reverb here. It's got pre-delay, it's got decay, it's got damping, low pass, high pass filters. You know, this is the same volume knob as the one I was just turning here, which I like. Like, dude, I'm a type of person who's like, I like to do it one way, but some people like to do it another way. So it gives you the options and freedom as a creator to kind of choose what's more comfortable for you. And sometimes I'm just not in a place where I want to go find the fader. I just want to click it with my mouse and move it. So I'll just do that sometimes, you know, but it literally gives you 3 options.
Especially if you got the key lab.
Yeah. So, you know, it just really depends on like what mood you're in or like how you like to work. And if you don't have the key lab, you can, you know, again, just do it manually, or I'm sure with a third party, it's pretty easy to program with another MIDI controller if that's what you have already. So
and you have the master EQ on the right as well, the treble, mid, and bass, just for the master out on the either the single sound or the double sound, since you can, you know, multiply the sounds by 2.
Yep. And then as well, you see these little effects parameters, and I'll explain this a little bit better in a minute. But the idea is that, you know, you can have multiple channels, and we'll get into that in a second. And then you can send different things. These are the effects like I showed you. So let's just look at the one real quick. So I want to do like a flanger. And you have a wet and dry signal, which would show you how much you're sending to the thing. And if you saw when I affected this dry wet signal, the flanger mix went up. So, you know, that's just one little thing. Again, you have a whole band. Or if you wanted to say like, dude, I'm going to get real crazy, I'm going to do 2 flangers. One's going to have a boost in the high over here, but less wet signal. And then this one's going to have a boost in the low and have more wet signal, right? Now, what does that sound like? It's got like a warbling effect. So, dude, I mean, just these alone, you can really just tweak and manipulate like any type of sound that, like this is just one sound too. I've just been messing with one single sound. So let's go back and get rid of this preset that I just had there. Again, all of this stuff is available. And sometimes it's like, well, this is a little overwhelming for me, right? A lot of times, and Ian showed me this a while back, like about 6 months ago, is just this randomizer really helps get you out of that. So let's say I want to do a synth pad or something like bowed strings, plucked strings. Let's just do evolving keys, right? So it just now gave me everything I need with all these different things. And now I hit randomize and I can just hit like, what does this sound like, you know?
Yeah, it's also called shuffle, but it's probably my most favorite setting out of all these different, or parameters out of all these different features that it has, because so many synths that you get, they don't have that option to shuffle your presets, and I don't want to know every time what the next sound is coming up in the list. I want
Yeah,
to
and
have a
also when you're
surprise
scrolling
every
through
single time.
sounds, you're
Yeah,
like A, B, C, and I'm like, I've only made it to C's, and I'm already kind of like, I've heard these same sounds too much. So the ability to go back and just get a V sound or whatever the name is, all these different things, like,
yeah,
this would normally be way down and you wouldn't actually be able to get to it, but now you can grab it. And if you notice, I'm clicking on these different ones, right? I'm trying to find a specific thing that I just saw on some of the initial. What was that one that I just did? Maybe it's, oh, okay. Oh yeah, here it goes. Winter keys. If you notice on the right side, it just gave you a mind-blowing kind of situation where it's two different sounds combined, right? So what, I don't even know what this sounds like, so bear with me. Cool. Okay, so it's got like two things going on. It's got like a little bit of a bell slash dry pad, and then this kind of like grainy synth pad on top of it. And we'll get into these, but one of the cool things that, let's just go into edit preset again. It's got these two mapped out here, right? Part one, part two. And also what it does is it has this bottom section here, this orange and green bar that's on the bottom is also something, if you see how it activated this little like switch here on the right side, I can now move this to be half of my keyboard is one sound and half is the other. So on this left side, it's, oh, I gotta hit record. Sorry, guys. It's like a really low end. And again, I can reverse it. So let's say, well, I like this, but I want to be able to play the
you
high end of that. Maybe the
overlap it
high
as
end.
you want. Yeah,
Yeah, the high end register is what I want right now. So it's got like a really cool kind of like interesting. It's got a little pluck there too. Grab this. And you can, again, and then the left side is a really kind of like drown pad that kind of evolves over time. And then, so now that creates a sound that sounds like this. Cool. So that's that. And that's just a random sound we chose. So like I would want to fine tune that. I'd want to kind of get more in the weeds. Let's go back to recently played. I believe we had like
and all the presets that have the A next to it, next to type, that's a dedicated dual sound preset. That just shows you there's two sounds in that preset.
Yeah.
And you can also hard it on the left and like which ones you want.
Right.
I'm
gonna go back and just, so also what's great is like most DAWs don't do this, but if you're watching, I'm just control or command Zing on doing what I've been doing, but all of my program changes are also happening while I'm doing that. So all these faders were just moving. And then you can basically see now it's going back to what it was. I'm actually reloading plugins and going back in sound. So that's something that like a lot of previous plugins wouldn't offer. So just note that you can do that. And, but what we could do is just find a cool synth. So let's just go back. So again, like, let's say I'm a fan of like the Melotron and I want to do, let's see, I think the types. Oh, it's under recently played, I see. So go back to home. Again, you can find the different instruments up here. You can also, again, hit these different types on the home page. So if you just you need brass, vocal, electric piano, etc., you can do that. Multi-instrument was what we just were kind of showing you. But let's put that up. So now it has all these different presets, and we've been able, this is what it would look like normally if it was just, there, but we've randomized it. So let's do like synth brass, Salvation Army Band. and then so I added some other stuff just to make it a little bit more full, and then now it's going to sound like this. Let's move it. Let's just play this sequence so we can hear the whole kind of chorus breakdown. So that's kind of that vibe. And then again, we'll add this to it too, this stuff. But what we're gonna do is kind of open up a new track, this demo track here. But before I do that, I just also want you to see the Melotron opened up so you can kind of really get in the weeds with it, and, you know, affect the tone and pitch and mod wheel and things like that. So just note that all these have additional parameters. And then as well, like, you know, like let's go under the hood with like more of an explore the homepage. Like this modular synth here, right? Let's just go into like big lead, open modular. All of this you can even do like patching if you want. It's like got to that level, you know, or whatever. So just note that like you can, if you are like a synth nerd, you can be a synth nerd and it's fine, you know. And if you're just kind of like, I don't know what to do, none of that matters, because it's just the sounds are already so locked
Well, and
in that
you have the 9 faders and 9 knobs at the bottom to kind of
yeah.
help some of the most popular parameters in which you kind of know where to go to instead of just moving
Yeah.
every oscillator to every envelope or whatnot.
Yeah. So like, oh, I'll just like, I need this synth brass sound right now. Like, let's go. So yeah, again, if you know all of this stuff, feel free to use it as you're at your leisure. You can really do like oscillation, frequency changes, again, affecting the attack, sustain, release, etc. That's all here. And then if you just want to like start messing around, like you can do that. And as you guys have probably seen, and if not, I would implore you to go watch like Arturia's like actual polybrute, matrix brute. Like they actually have the ability and wherewithal and knowledge to actually implement these like in a real capacity. So when they're doing it in a virtual capacity, they're also showing that exact same attention to detail in, you know, that execution. So but yeah, again, like, you know, you can really get in the weeds. Modulation, as you're seeing here, you know, you can do all that stuff. And you can do, again, all of this stuff live. So while you're playing, you can kind of start programming MIDI to take on those characteristics live, just like you would do if you were on a actual synthesizer and you're turning knobs while you're performing something. But it does it in a virtual setting, so you can adjust the parameters more technically and more accurately. So that's that. I'm going to get out of this real quick. We're going to go back into what we were kind of talking about a bit ago with this new kind of vibe here. So we created this just kind of quickly, but you can hit this preset button here. So what we have here is a Japanese grand piano, and then this OBXA synthesizer that's kind of taking on a hybrid string sound. Let me just make sure. So what that sounds like is, so it's got this kind of pretty combination. Whenever you hit like the piano keys, it has like kind of a follow up with a nice string. And you can, again, like I said, I only want the piano to have these parameters. I'm sorry, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, there we go. Half of the keyboard is going to be one thing, and the other half is going to be uh, another. So you can do that. And so, like,
Show them some of the library stuff on the left there. Recently played, liked, saved
yeah,
presets. I think we
cool.
should jump into that in a little bit and show them exactly how to organize their presets.
Cool. Let me get out of this one so that way we can go back into that dual editing situation. We'll go back into that like trumpet thing that we just found. So again, like let's say like, oh, I love this, dude. So there's like a little heart section, an emoji essentially. And oh, I like this one. I like Explorer of Wanderers and Delay Mono or whatever. Again, I don't know what these sound like, so but maybe you came across it and maybe like this isn't right for the beat that I'm making right now, but maybe one day in the future, like I want to work with this, so I'm gonna just kind of note that I like this square pad, and you can go into liked, and all of those that I just selected will be there. And maybe you're like, I already use this beat for this. It just kind of goes in and out, and then you can kind of select from there. So as you're getting more advanced in using Arturia in your workflow, you're not like opening it up fresh every time, and you're just like I have to start over and find like again like go through this immense library of sounds. Like you're going to start crafting stuff that is more suited towards your stylings. Maybe you make more like lo-fi hip hop, or maybe you make more like EDM electronic. Like those, the needs for those sounds are going to be a little bit different per track or whatever. Or maybe you make like organic roots Americana, like the stuff I'm messing with right now might not even be appropriate whatsoever. So you're going to find like upright bass and piano and things like that that'll maybe fit a little bit more, or maybe acoustic drums, etc. So just note that it has that kind of range when you're looking at stuff. So, and then you
Yeah,
have
save
like recently
presets.
played. So
Recently
maybe like
played, yeah.
are you good?
Yeah. I was just
Okay.
saying recently played.
Oh, I didn't know if I dropped off. So yeah,
Okay.
basically like this goes back to like I've been looking at what there was one day where I was just trying to find the right piano sound, so I was just kind of cycling through. But this was like a few days ago where I was looking through and just seeing, just trying to find the right piano for this specific need that I had, and then you know, or what we were just working out of just now. Uh, it's all there, and you can again you could just randomize it. You can kind of have the same parameters as well. So just note that if you lose something, you can kind of find it quickly again. So maybe we could see, you know, Pat Asian like was another one we were using. There was also that like Japanese one and all that. So German and knit deep strings is I think what we were just using, and I'm just going back so you can see that it really gets pretty. There's deep levels of save there, and also what you've downloaded and installed. It has all of that stuff, and as well there's a store function, so you can actually like browse the store from Logic or from your DAW, whether it be Ableton or Pro Tools, and then download it. And the install process is really simple. And again, I think there's that tips and tricks function to use the Software Center, which is another app that goes in there. And let's say like Arturia puts out new stuff like every couple months, every month. You can go in and kind of update that stuff pretty easily. And then there's the playlist function, which is great. So let's say you are a person who does like live performance, and you need to create a template out of like your DAW, but also like you need kind of a rack of synths, so you don't have to again find the stuff from scratch, or have like, again, like all of these tracks individually will take a bandwidth on your DAW. And so when you're performing live, it might be hard to kind of cycle through them because like your DAW bandwidth live is starting to say like increase your buffer size, and that's obviously a huge problem. So in this situation, you could put something together in here and kind of add stuff to save preset to playlist, right? And that obviously just went here. So what I opened up was this demo track that we just created with the piano. Let me hit record, make sure it's on. This So yeah, let me go actually just adjust this a bit. So we'll get that a little more, and you can craft this as you need. So that now went added to this go on stage function. But before we get into the weeds there, because it's like a whole kind of cool thing, I wanted to show you this again. As you saw earlier, we were kind of adjusting reverbs and things like that for each instrument, and you can do that individually, and input these and make sure that they're on and off. So right now everything is off for those. So if you wanted to add the reverb I just put on, it's going to be here, and then you're going to make sure that this is like active. And then same thing here, like let's say that you turn this on, these could just be off, so just make sure they're on, and you can kind of affect the ability to have like more reverb and size, and maybe a little more decay and damping, and as you can see, it has that longer tail. It feels like it's in a bigger space, whereas when it's off, it sounds like this. And as you also heard with the piano, this delay is on as well. So you're kind of adding a little bit more of an evolved sound, which is kind of adding some slight tweaks. And again, the same kind of parameters here for delays. You've got feedback, you've got the timing, filtration, you've got the ping pong function, and also beat sync, which is nice because if you say you change your tempo, you will also have this synced to it, which is super helpful. Otherwise, you're going to have to sit there and kind of like figure out, like with your ear, what the timing is on the delay. You know,
The effects are very, very good. I've noticed because they use some of the pigments effects, and they use some from our effects collection. They throw the same algorithms into the Analog Lab 5.
right.
You can hear the quality of the reverb and the delays are
Yeah,
pretty
and I think it's just
superb.
really about keeping it simple on this interface, so that way, like, you know, anyone can kind of jump into it. But again, if you're a more advanced user, like you can either use it on this or open up the effects collection, which is really awesome. I really love the Infinity Reverb, and the sounds that creates is just really crazy. So that's that. Let's just get these off real quick, because that way I can show you. You can also like activate on these effects pedals here, which is effect A, effect B, effects A, effects B. So, you know, one could be doing flange, and then one could be doing chorus, and you know, again, you're activating them on each device. So like, again, like the opportunities to do that are pretty much endless. You know, and then if I want to have it on here, go here, you can do that. But like, oh, I don't want a flanger, I want a distortion. So if like I want to achieve more of like a kind of a guitar grunge sound, um, and then also again, it has different little baby parameters inside of the parameters. So you can make it really like distort it. Essentially, that's what it's doing. So, and as you guys can kind of get vibes off, like this is supposed to kind of resemble like a stomp pad or like some kind of like effects pedal for a guitar or something along those lines. So, um, you know, it's just really trying to stay as analog as possible in this digital space that we all live in now. So, either way, that's kind of the vibe here. We'll just do this quickly, and I'll just kind of pull this down a bit. I always like to kind of keep a lot of stuff kind of conservative, and then, you know, go from there.
Yeah, Hunter, we got some questions too we should probably jump into as well.
Sure. Yeah, I
if you don't
just feel
mind.
free to volume off me. I can't actually see them. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I got you. Alexis had some questions. Rick actually had some questions as well. He's
cool.
only able to see the knobs and not the faders on his analog lab, and I'm thinking sometimes it'll come up. And Rick, do you see the two arrows on the bottom right? Sometimes there's two opposite arrows that are pointed against each other, and you have to open it up even further. But that's the only thing that I've seen on mine. Mine's always opened up with all my 9 knobs and 9 faders.
Yeah,
But
another
there's
thing you
also
can
a
do, man,
resized window
what
right
helps
there.
me, like I
Yeah,
said, there's like a couple different options you can do in order to like make sure your window is resized. I like to go here and just be like, I'll just
exactly,
hit 80 and it'll actually, it's already on 80, but if I wanted to make it a little bigger, it'll kind of boost it a little bit. So it may be just that your window size is not um, showing the full scope or something along those lines. So maybe try
exactly.
to like adjust it or whatever.
Some of the Arturia plugins allow for like a smaller version and a larger version. You have to extend it.
Yeah, you see this
Um,
too? This controls tab here. I'm hiding what I want. I'm hiding the keys. I'm hiding whatever. So that also could be a factor. Or maybe it shows something like this. These are all additional options for you to get, more out of what you are looking for. Or maybe the keyboard thing distracts you from the actual knobs and things like that. So you can kind of get in the weeds there. But there's
So yeah,
options for.
Alexis has a question too about instruments included in the V collection. So they're gonna select some of those popular presets and throw them into the Analog Lab 5 um, program itself for the $200 program, which is a smaller version, the
Okay.
2000 preset version versus the whole V collection. So yeah, it's a mixture of presets involved with the whole V collection, the Analog Lab 5, I should say. So go ahead and keep asking questions, guys. This is great. Earlier, there
Oh,
was a
I see what I
question.
did there.
I must say,
Yeah.
Dave asked if you could save custom presets from the individual synths and open them up in Analog Lab 5. I don't. I think you may have to import them. I don't think it'll open them up by themselves. I haven't tried that.
Look, what
Um,
you could do though, let's say you want to do the Juno and I'm going to do tack piano real quick. Hold on. Tack piano. Let me just get this instrument again. Sorry, guys. But I can still show you tack piano fading, right? That's what we were using for.
yeah.
So now that I have this instrument, what you could do is like, let's say you made all these adjustments, open piano, and I think like, I'm boosting this, and with the synth, it's probably a little bit more involved. Um, so let's just go back to that demo track we were working out of, right? So you have this open OBXA, and you could obviously make all of these changes, which is, and you could probably make these tweaks, etc. Whatever you do, I'm not going to get too in the weeds with it, but um, then you can go back because you're in a place right now where this is kind of like set, right? You can again save it, add preset to the playlist. I'm going to get rid of this old version here, delete, okay. And then when you're ready to jump into it, you could just call this like demo preset. So now you know, or you could say like, oh, this is when I'm going to do my show at the Roxy. Let's say you have a residency or whatever, and you can get into that, and then your live mode is here, and you say go on stage, and all of that should be kind of in good order. And here, so this is like your live mode that you can kind of like recall sets, or maybe like what you could do is what I had to do like pre-pandemic before we all got put into our little closets and not allowed to leave the house ever. I have an ongoing live set. I was performing let's say like 10 tracks or a 30-minute set. Obviously every song is different, so you can set every song to kind of have synth instruments to come to work with whatever your set is or whatever. So you could do 10 of these or 11 or 12, and then or if you're a DJ, you could do the same kind of thing. Like maybe you have like a mix between a live DJ set, and then you have some synths on top of whatever you're doing. You can do different songs. So just note that like each one could have multiple. So I can go into the save part 2 as, save preset to playlist under song title 2, and I can move these, and you could just build out an army of like what you're looking to do in this mode, and it's really just up to you as the user to like how you want to customize this. But essentially the tools are there for you to use in a live setting, or even like let's say you're working on an album in a studio and you like, oh, it's 2 a.m. or it's 5 a.m. let's get out of here and get this back tomorrow. Like in the 90s and 2000s, you'd have working with the assistant engineer, and you'd be like recalling and writing down all the knobs that you had the night before, and making any knob that's moved, you have to make sure it's A, reset, and B, kind of like recalled, because it could just totally shape the sound differently on board. So in this case, it's just a real quick way to save it and affect all those parameters the same. And I think by having it in one instrument rack, it also saves you on bandwidth, because you're not, again, like I said, opening up, what is this, 15, 16 different plugins and all of the stuff that goes into that. So that's just an option for you to use if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. So David asked, I guess he was saying that he's got 100 presets, over a couple hundred presets and individual synths, and he wants to know how we can import them into Analog Lab 5. And I need to find this out. I'm going to ask the developers, David, and get back to you in the comments. So thank you so much for the question, because that's actually a very, very cool question.
It is.
And when I save a preset in Analog Lab 5, it showed up as a LabX file, versus the actual synthesizer file in and of itself. So if we could possibly import them, but I think I'm gonna have to find that out, David. So don't worry, we'll get there. We'll get there for you, bro. Anybody else? Let's see. I've been my internet trying to stream this for replay. Yes, it'll be available for replay later, Tim.
And I think we did another one of these too with 4, and I got more into the weeds on the Keylab integration. So if you have a Keylab, I think there was another one of these that Ian and I did previously. So that also goes into like installing the device and syncing it and all that stuff that you can check out on that Tips and Tricks website. But if you want to follow along there, I think you can. So
cool.
But yeah, that pretty much puts us almost at the hour mark. I guess I could just play some more of this track real quick so you guys at least kind of hear a vibe of it. I'm gonna do like a bounce down of it though, because it'll save some bandwidth, if that makes sense. So yeah, I really dig this new version, and I also dig the Keylab working with it.
It takes a second to get used to from 4 to 5 a little bit, but it's just interesting how it's actually a different interface than what I've noticed with other DAWs or other GUIs, because usually they're so jam packed with so many parameters up in front. It's kind of like, wow, you don't even want to turn a knob or a fader because there's just so many of them just to kind of get when you just open up the first thing. But ours is almost like a website, almost like a browser that comes in super easy. And then you can get super, super detailed, create your own sounds, which is what Arturia is known for primarily, and customizing everything. But it's not so intimidating when you first get into it.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you've used 4, like, at first you open it and there's a kind of a new interface with like the instrument racks up front. But once you kind of get into it a little bit, it's really the same as far as like how to navigate. But then obviously you guys keep adding new sounds and plugins and things like that. So in a way, it's just much improved. And hold on one second here. But I didn't have any issues like running from one end to the other as far as there's a user learning curve here from 4 to 5. I just didn't feel that really. But here's some of the track. Can you guys see this still, or is it still running?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Cool, man.
Cool. Well, thank
It's
you
pretty
guys. I
ethereal. I
appreciate
like
you
that.
having me today. It was pretty
Yeah.
awesome. So,
Cool. So yeah, just don't be afraid to customize your workflow with Analog Lab 5. It's super intuitive, super easy. And you can do so much there. I mean, it's insane how complex it can get with these synths and everything like that. But it's amazing how Analog Lab 5 has made it much easier to not
yeah.
know what you're doing, to knowing what you're doing. Doesn't really matter. It'll do all that stuff with over 10,000 sounds. It's a huge collection to mess
Yep.
with. You know, I spent an hour designing a piano sound one day. You
Yeah.
know,
And you won't get bored. Like even with just with the one, you don't need all of the stuff if you don't can't afford it or whatever. Obviously having the other plugins are amazing, but just what we just showed you, I feel like we just showed you scratching the surface of like how in the weeds you can get to customize and tweak and refine to exactly what you need. Um, and we probably showed you like 1% of the sounds that you can use, honestly. But yeah, I never find myself being like, oh, there's not enough sounds in here.
yeah,
So,
I've been using it for years now, and I
yeah,
can't stop shuffling and being surprised at every moment because it's so easy to get bored of a program and you need something else, you
yeah.
know. But we just
Um,
keep expanding this thing.
cool.
All right,
Well,
guys. Well, yeah,
you guys also can follow along. I'm at can the number one live can one live on socials like Instagram and stuff. A lot of times I'll do some behind the scenes stuff, and I'm releasing a 16 track album this year. So over the course of this year, and I will tell you honestly, a lot of the sounds I've used have come from this bundle, and I'm pretty excited about it. So there's a lot you can kind of accomplish with it. So
mm-hmm. Cool. Well, the comments have been very positive, man. Thank you so much, everybody in the to watching the show. Hunter, thank you so much, man. Always a
anytime,
pleasure.
dude.
Yes, sir.
Anytime.
And everyone have a great rest of your evening out here in SoCal or wherever you are.
Sweet.
All right, guys. Take care. Cool. 1 second here.